Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Get ready, pal.
Here's your host, Randy Tobler.
Good morning. Welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri on the last beautiful day before some torrential weather coming in tomorrow. Brian Hauswirth reporting on that this morning. We'll cover some of the potentially 2-inch hail he's reporting might be in tomorrow. But today's going to be another beautiful, warm, summer-like day, as it was over the weekend. If you suffer from allergies, maybe you didn't like it over the weekend. Dry and windy, so it was a little tough on the pollen. Stephanie's back in. Yay.
I'm here.
Thank goodness. We need some sensibility in this studio.
I had some adventures as well. On my very first flight, they said, "Is there a doctor on board?"
Oh.
And I looked around.
What happened?
There was a health professional, and I'm not quite sure. I watched her carry like OJ back, so I think maybe it was a diabetes issue. It wasn't thank goodness.
No, like babies delivered.
OJ was on your flight?
That's right. I missed that too.
John Marsh is, he's on top of it this morning.
You know, I'm not surprised
Producer
because
Hannah.
when Stephanie travels, that's typically when
We had a lot of
famous folks tend to bite the dust.
Yeah.
and Southern Boone drama while I was
I know.
gone.
I told her this morning, where were you? We were talking Southern Boone drama. And
I didn't even get to make fun of you for being from Ashland while all that was going on.
I haven't heard much more about that over the weekend. I think the school district's been pretty much silent other than from the statement they made.
Yeah, I think they're digging in.
Yeah, just digging in and saying there was communication, and why weren't you at the board meeting? We talked about it. All right, well, there's lots going on. As you know, Iran in an unprecedented attack, most of which, or at least much of which, was launched from Iranian soil instead of the proxies, although they contributed to the attack on Saturday. Either didn't make it, 300 salvos, half of them apparently didn't make it. The other half were taken down by Israeli Defense Forces, UK, U.S., Jordan got in the mix, right?
I don't know if I was late to the party, but I checked my Twitter on Saturday night and got really nervous for a while. And I hadn't been watching, but I kind of came in right, the missiles were on their way, and I thought, should I try to get home? Like I am, and so I didn't have the full picture, but then, all those missiles and one or two small injuries?
Yeah, there was a girl, I guess, who had a serious injury, a little 10 or 12-year-old. And I guess there was some damage to a military installation, a little bit, but nothing major. And the Israeli Defense War Council met yesterday. Nothing definite out of there. I think they're probably keeping their powder dry to figure out, see how things roll out. And they'll probably, at a time of their choosing, respond. Meanwhile, Joe Biden says, we're not going to back Israel. We're done with them. I mean, the guy keeps telegraphing what you're going to do.
Them not to respond.
I know.
And saying, you've already won. I mean, but are we surprised that he's acting weak and encouraging Israel? Say, hey, just sit there. Just, you defended it. You've won. You're good.
And isn't that what got the world into the mess it's in? Because he is not the firm, forceful, yes, sometimes bull in a china shop, Donald Trump. I mean,
we don't have any mean tweets.
Yeah, and Trump was out there campaigning on this and saying, look, this kind of stuff didn't happen when I was president. And that's the honest truth. Yeah. It really is.
Well, speaking of Trump, he'll be in court for weeks, it's reported. I mean, he has to be in this trial. I didn't understand that. You have to be in trial, right? In this kind of a trial?
Going to be there, and they start jury selection today. And yeah, it should last several weeks. We're expecting voir dire or voir dire, I think. Depending on where you are, they say it different, but voir dire, jury selection today. And that could last up until a week. I think the judge has released some of the questions that they expect to ask some of the potential jurors. But obviously a lot of people know about the details of this case. And I haven't participated in jury selection. Is not typically something I do, but the people who do it are very good at it and are very particular. And I'm sure both sides are going to come really prepared. But yeah, he won't be campaigning. Will be stuck in this trial for potentially for weeks.
It's fascinating.
I'm curious as to how, in a case like this, you find impartial jurors.
Good question.
Yeah.
That seems kind of like an oxymoron in this case.
On the way in, I heard a guy who I guess was involved in one of the in a civil case against the Trump organization, saying, I'm a registered Democrat. My wife's a registered Democrat. You ask anyone in New York City, they have a strong feeling for Donald Trump one way or another. It's not wishy-washy. You don't sit the fence with this guy. And he said there's no way he can get this. So, I mean, even people who are generally opposed to Donald Trump, but who have an intellectually integrity, viewpoint, are saying, come on, this guy can't get a fair trial here.
Well, and if you recall, this is kind of their least best case that they're going forward. Very first, we're talking about essentially hush money, right? So he potentially has an affair, which isn't illegal. Maybe there's some hush money, which whether contracting parties can pay each other, maybe not illegal. And then, so you have to go from affair to hush money to, falsifying business records. But then that's just a misdemeanor. So in order to really get him, they have to connect that with some sort of campaign finance violation. So you're way down the road to even try to pin this on Trump. It's pretty wild.
I don't know. This guy said that they should have tried it as a misdemeanor, but they couldn't because of the statute of limitations,
Correct.
Right? It all occurred in 2018. So, and you have to wonder, you have to ask the question, and it's probably the most important question I've heard Donald Trump and his people say. It's like, if there was something there, they've had, 5 years to prosecute this. Why didn't they do it then? It's so blatantly, transparently obvious. This is election interference, plain and simple, with the timing of it.
No, they want him to be a convicted felon when the election rolls around.
And you're right, John, and what they're banking on is that, there was this poll out there that everyone keeps citing that, if he actually gets a conviction, that might change voters' minds. Mm-hmm. But up until this point, all of these charges and everything has only benefited Trump. And so I think the question that I'm asking, because, this trial is going to go forward, will Trump take the stand? And how does that, I think if he did, I don't see how it doesn't help him.
I don't understand it. I mean, I think it's at the least, it's going to bring out the voters who are for him, right? At the minimum. And then, will that center right, independent crowd that maybe voted for him in 2016, half of them didn't vote for him in 2020, whatever. How will it influence them? That's going to be pivotal. And there may or may not be other trials that unfold before it, but I've heard him say that this is the only one that's likely to actually come to fruition and finality before the election.
I think that's right.
Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Stephanie said, hush money payments aren't illegal. And this is a whole question of, personal conduct more than anything else, I think.
And they tried to pin that on him in the 2016 election, right? That he was just a bad guy and he treats women wrong and all of that. And people still showed up and voted for Trump.
I don't know. Well, and then it's just we'll have to follow where it goes. But I think the jury selection process is going to take a week
or more,
because how does that work? The judge asks questions, but then the counsel for each side can ask questions too.
Yes, I believe.
And do you get so many strikes before you're out?
You do, and I'm not sure how many they get in this trial.
It's different in states too, I guess,
and amongst different cases.
Yeah. But you can run out of those cards to play, right? To where then finally you say, you have to accept this because you've played all of your...
Yes.
You've thrown the red flag too many times.
Depending on the issue, yes.
Okay. Well, I don't understand it. I just don't understand how a guy can get a fair trial, whether you like Trump or not. I mean, it's a cooked jury one way or another. All right.
He's got 3 other trials looming large out there as well.
Yeah, I've never seen a guy make so much lemonade out of lemon, though. I mean, the guy politically, he just makes so much hay out of this.
What it was like Teflon
Teflon Trump.
Yeah. The Teflon Don, yeah. And on a local story, I don't think we've talked about this yet. Well, it didn't come down until Friday, but Boone Health and its CEO, Brady Dubois, has signed an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, with Audrain County officials to try to take a look at at the situation there and see what they can do to help with health care in Audrain County. It's very interesting. And I thought in the story I saw, it was interesting. He said that he really isn't interested in the hospital so much. I guess he means the bricks and mortar.
He's saying it's going to tear it down.
He's thinking of reinventing health care there. And I think that's an interesting thing. I've worked with Brady when I was a hospital administrator. We were in the same large district. The MHA divides, the Missouri Hospital Association divides the state into various districts. And then you get together, you talk about health care and, some of the compliance issues and regulations. And COVID was a big time when we got to. And then he went up to Wisconsin, I believe it was, I think, where he was leading a big healthcare system there.
He ran Mosaic for a while in St. Joseph.
He was in Mosaic. That's when I knew him. And
Yeah.
really, I knew he was going to go places. And he's a talented guy. I mean, he's a relatable fellow. He knows healthcare inside and out. And he's a patient-first kind of a guy. So I wish him the best. And in pursuit of health care for the folks in Audrain County, because, I mean, it's really tough. That's a long drive if you're having an emergency. And right now, they don't have an emergency room.
That's the key. And what I think I want to clarify one thing. When you say he said he was not interested in the hospital, you're right. He was referring to the old hospital.
Right,
that
the
old hospital.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Is basically, it's just not the model that any new hospital would want to use. Noble tried. They put some money into it, but St. Mary's have been trying to get rid of that for a number of years. I do have a story up, 939theeagle.com, kws.com.
I wanted to bring attention to it.
And I'm glad you did. I think the two quick things about it. Number one, whether it's going to be a hospital, and we've heard talk about hospitals, things like that, or if it's going to be something else or maybe along the model, we don't know all of those details yet. But I also will point out that when I was at the Ready Board meeting would have been on Wednesday, Nim Chania, who's the Vice Chancellor of MU Healthcare, he actually talked about detail in his presentation about going into these communities, and probably 5 minutes of his presentation was about Mexico, Fulton, and Audrain County. So it is good that we have two local Columbia, healthcare providers that are in that area. MU Healthcare has the urgent care, so we'll see what happens on this. But it's according to State Representative Ken Hayden, it's a life or death situation, because if people have a heart attack, they need to be able to get to the emergency room.
Well, the CMS has been toying with, and I think this year, I believe on the first of this year, they came out with the opportunity, actually it was last year, they came out with the opportunity for hospitals to sort of scale down, critical access hospitals in smaller areas, financially troubled areas and distressed areas, to form what is called a rural emergency hospital. You actually give up your license, and it becomes basically an emergency room with enough backup to just stabilize someone and get them to where they need to go, maybe a couple of observation beds, and some subsidies to help support that, because it's largely the lab and x-ray services within patients that support things like an emergency room and clinics and so forth. So the problem is, those of us who have looked at it carefully, I mean, and those of us I've talked to a guy at the National Rural Health Association. He didn't come out and say it directly, but he said it doesn't make sense. I mean, people that look at it, it just doesn't make sense. And there's not we don't have a state mechanism for licensure of a rural emergency hospital. They haven't even in our state done the infrastructure D.C. rundown.
And so she asked him, what's
the
should
message?
What should we tell Iran? And he said, just don't.
On Friday.
Yeah.
And then Saturday unfolded.
Oh, my goodness.
That
All right.
could mean so many different things.
But after Saturday did unfold, Biden apparently talked to Israel and said, hey, you guys don't need to do anything to respond. You defended yourselves, and everything's all good. Just sit tight. And he's in a really precarious position with his supporters because he's got some states where there's a lot of folks who are pressuring him to not stand with Israel, and he's trying to ride the line. And I think this could be a pivotal moment in the campaign and how he handles the situation. What are your thoughts so far, Randy?
Well, I heard that he did say, hey, take the win. I don't know that that's a win, that half of the drones or the missiles didn't launch or fell to the earth before they were taken out. And then he's again back to the game of telling Bibi Netanyahu how to deal with his country's sovereign defense.
And said that essentially we're not going to help with any sort of affirmative actions. All right.
Yep.
Well, we are also watching Congress, and we might see some movement. Speaker Mike Johnson has said he is going to push for aid to Israel and Ukraine this week. Now, he has had this supplemental package, I think it's around $95 billion, basically sitting for the last couple months, but he's saying he's going to make another push for it. Of course, he's been under a lot of scrutiny as well. So, but he said he's going to go forward this week, and I think this weekend's events probably make that ever more important. Of course, we talked a little bit this morning as well. Well, today's tax day, first of all.
Yeah.
So we can't really talk about D.C. and all of the clown stuff going on there without saying that we are all writing big checks. If you haven't already, typically.
And also pay your taxes, because fun fact, the government doesn't like when you don't do that.
For sure.
Even though it does suck, you might want to do that.
Now, they expect us to pay our taxes,
Right.
but, they don't have to follow any rules because, last week I was expecting to hear more about the impeachment articles being delivered to the Senate from the House. That still hasn't happened, so maybe that will happen this week. But, of course, Trump is in trial today, and that will be leading the day all day long. He is in trial on this hush money. Maybe it was falsifying business records. Maybe there was a campaign finance violation. Those are the allegations. It's all very political. And so, but we won't really hear much. We will hear a lot about it, but there's not going to be a lot happening because they will be doing jury selection for probably at least a week. They're expecting the trial to last, I think, is 6 weeks, maybe. He will be having to be in the courtroom.
I had a fun thought. Why don't we start a pool? Maybe people can text in. Let's start some kind of a fun pool. No money exchanging. How many days into the trial will another gag order come down on Donald Trump for this one? I mean, will it be tomorrow, the next day, 10 days, 7 days? You know it's going to happen after
New
each
drinking
day.
game.
Yeah.
That's right.
I wouldn't be surprised. And then, of course, the big question is, will he testify in the trial? So
He says he will.
A lot of questions come.
Mark Alford, just back from Israel in the last few days. Can't wait to hear what he says about the sentiment on the ground there and what they think about the rhetorical barbs that they're taking from the international community, from Americans chanting death to America, pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli, anti-Semitic Americans. And then Mayor Barbara Buffaloe. And we'll talk with her about her trip to Switzerland.
Is she going with you?
No,
That'd be something.
That would be interesting. That would be interesting. I'll take the back of the plane. She can take the first class. That's good.
Well, Stephanie, you've ran into her at the Columbia airport before.
Yeah, I did, along with another former family member.
Yeah.
And they played nice when they bumped into each other face to face. And that was right around the T-shirt incident, I think.
That was like the week after the
Yeah.
T-shirt incident.
Oh, yeah.
But no, hey, I might go to Switzerland. I was lucky yesterday
Really?
on my flight. Well, why not?
Why not? You should.
I got basically a free flight.
Well, there's some reporting on her trip and who she'll be traveling with that we're going to ask her about. And why is this chair sinking? Why did the chair do that again?
You look like you're one of those people who's like walking down fake steps.
I feel like
as you
Is
sink
it not
to the-
staying up?
like
No.
the old Tim Conway. I need chair Cialis. I don't. All right. This chair occasionally has this problem, and then it'll go along for weeks, and then all of a sudden it starts failing on me.
I think, but so let's get back.
I feel like Tim Conway. Remember when he used to do the Dorf thing when he was on his knees, the little golfer? Okay.
We have that problem in the other studio with the microphone.
Yeah.
You're kind of like a shrinking violin.
I know.
Yes.
But with the mayor, I mean, her big argument is that the city's not paying for her trip. But like, do we care that the city pays for it? Because she's not paying for it. Someone's paying for it, and I think
Swiss government is paying.
Well, and so we
Yeah.
get these arguments, and I've seen it before. We've got clerks who get to go on these fancy vacations. We've got, and I think politicians often say things like, "Well, the taxpayers aren't paying for that."
That's sometimes worse.
I
think. Like,
I mean, we heard this argument from our state treasurer when he put those, put his advertisements all over the illegal machines.
Yeah.
And he said, well, we're not paying for it. The lobbyists are paying, it's the lobbyist gift, or the lobbyists, these other people are paying for it. And I'm like, is that worse? and so the same thing here. I mean, I think she says, well, someone else is, but why? I think you have to ask yourself, why is a foreign government paying for our local officials to go on a fancy trip? And I do think there are some learning opportunities, and I'm involved in some more. And so I will, I know Brianna Lennon oftentimes goes on like trips and they like observe elections. So I just got back from a conference. I do pay my own way. But I know in certain circumstances when like big organizations invite elected officials, they understand that they're not in a position to where they can pay for these trips. And so for the purposes of quote unquote learning or sharing, sometimes they will subsidize this type of work. But again, what do these folks want to get from our mayor or learn from our mayor?
In the story on our affiliate, ABC 17 News, they talk about, she's quoted as saying, well, a spokesperson said, the trip offers a unique opportunity to position Switzerland's highly innovative, sustainable, and forward-looking approach to urban development and governance, yada, yada. And then she later says how it gives her a chance to make connections and how maybe business people get to know about Columbia. Well, I mean, how do the people down at the candy factory feel? What, are they going to bring in some Swiss chocolatier or something down here? I mean, how's that helping anyone? Swiss watchmaker? I don't see that happening here. I'm sorry. I just don't get it.
Well,
cheese shop? Olga making some Swiss cheese down in, up on Rangeline? I don't get it.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And, from the state perspective, we have entities that are already doing some of these diplomatic or economic trips where they talk to folks who are actually interested or maybe already located in Missouri. So perhaps, my thought would be if we already had some mid-Missouri companies that are located in Switzerland that she was going over then to discuss, those relationships or how they might expand, that makes more sense. But, this one's tough for me.
Well, this will be her third overseas trip as mayor in the past 7 months. Went to China, as part of the U.S. Heartland China Association.
And she's gotten a lot of criticism for this, but I wonder, did Mayor Treese go on a lot of trips? Did
I don't know.
Mayor John, do you know if Mayor I don't recall Mayor Turgeon going on any like city-sponsored trips, but that doesn't mean that she didn't.
I don't know. She was on vacation so much when she was mayor on her personal nickel. I don't really know.
I don't either.
Well, and there's an element in this story that I have to ask her about. In this time when us old white guys are besieged, the Switzerland trip is done in conjunction with Presence Switzerland, a Swiss government agency. I'm embarrassed. This is my homeland. This is my dad's came from Switzerland. A Swiss embassy, a spokesman in Washington, D.C. says that the government invited 10 to 12 female mayors across the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
What's that all about? I mean, I want to ask her if the newly hired $100,000 position DEI person has approved of this. That doesn't seem DEI to me. I mean, you can say I am woman mayor, watch me roar, but I mean, if you think about it, why females? I mean, it's fine that there's female mayors. That's not the point here. I thought we were about diversity.
But you want to go
inclusion.
You want to go too.
No, it's not that. I just don't understand.
Aww.
Why wouldn't she insist? She's the DEI mayor. She started a new DEI program. Wouldn't she go to Presence Switzerland and say, hey, I want some men on the trip. We need to have diversity here. We need to represent the cities that we need to look. The delegation needs to look like the cities that we represent. Last time I checked, there's males in Columbia.
I do think that she is a part of some sort of female mayors group.
My God.
Because I think when she was asked about the T-shirt, I think she said it was a gift from another female mayor. And so I
Well, no.
I think there's enough dudes.
Now,
in her
wait a minute. Now,
position.
if John and I were if John was mayor of Smallsville, Missouri, rural Missouri, some mayor, and I was a mayor, and we said we're going on an all-male trip delegation to Paris, oh, the hue and cry would be NPR would be all over this. Are you kidding me?
You already have that. You guys go to the golf course every weekend
Exactly.
and all that other stuff.
But we don't call it the male-only foursome on the links, right?
We'll just call it a trade mission and call it even. How's that?
I'm sorry, guys.
I'm with you on this, Randy. I really am.
I'm sorry. And look, if she wasn't so big on DEI and a $100,000 position, I would be different. It's like, hey, I'm okay with it.
But I mean, even if she wasn't, it doesn't make sense to exclude a certain group when you're taking one of these trips. I agree with you because, I mean, for the same reason that you wouldn't say this is, race specific. Oh, only, black mayors can go or only white. That would be, people would be appalled, right?
But, we've talked about, I had my daughter, Sammy, when she was in school, when the thing blew up after Ferguson at University of Missouri, right?
Okay, yeah.
She was on my radio show at that time. And she said, a lot of us are saying, what is this? The black student president is a gay black student president at the time, and there's a black student union. What if there was a white student union? Oh, my God, you would never hear the end of it. You know what I mean? And so I just think if we're going to have intellectual integrity, let's be consistent in our principles. Let's follow them through. That's all I'm saying. So I'm going to ask the mayor about that.
If there are any guys
I'm
going
asking
on the trip.
if the DEI expert at Columbia at City Hall has signed off on the female-only delegation to Switzerland. I'm going to ask her about that.
I hope so. I mean, who's going to carry all my bags? That's what I want to know.
Raul the porter.
Have to have her own airplane just to take the baggage. I know Carrie Turgeon did make the trip to Minchburg, Germany, Jefferson City's sister city a while back, and that's something that business folks and locals go on from time to time, and I think they pay their own way.
I thought so as well.
Well, and I for me anyways, it'd be different if this was the only trip she was going on. But this is now, the third overseas trip that she's taken in the last several months?
Yeah, you're right.
That to me is more significant. We're going to have to start doing like they do with presidents, how many days they've been on vacation versus how many days they've been on the job.
And it seems a bit, excuse me, but this is not to demean the city of Columbia, but a city of 110,000 people, right?
There's a big butt coming in there.
There's an awful lot of mania going on here. I'm going to China for climate in the big cities. I'm going to Switzerland. we're Columbia, Missouri. We're a medium-sized town.
I can confirm
just
as
saying.
the mayor pro tem, I have not been to a foreign country on behalf of Ashland, Missouri. I think I can
Humble
confirm.
brag.
I think I can confirm that our current mayor, Dory Slinker, has not been to any foreign countries.
That's what I mean. I don't know. It's just it seems a bit grandiose to be.
Maybe you could reach out and do an exchange with Centralia. Something like that.
Yeah, there you
Appear
go.
at their council
Yeah,
meeting.
our sister city over there in Centralia.
Well,
I like that.
But you're right, John. I mean, you bring up a good point because we do have organizations here in Missouri, like the Municipal League, and other opportunities to get together with Missouri mayors. And I think even there's like a Midwest coalition. And I do think there's a lot that can be gleaned when we talk city to city and leader to leader because we're facing a lot of the same issues.
Under the same set of rules.
Under
right?
the same set of rules. And so I hope, so my hope is, fine, go on this Switzerland trip, but are you taking advantage of all of the opportunities you have here in Missouri? And are you talking to, other mid-Missouri mayors and mayors across our state in how you can, work together and learn from one another?
I mean, I like the fact that leaders are dreamers. And then I look at these guys on the tour, and I'm like, it's so.
Are you armchair quarterbacking golf?
No, I'm just saying these guys are so good, and I'm so bad. It's like, I don't know. I love just walking around a golf. It's so pretty on a golf course.
I'm more of a
just
Happy
beautiful.
Gilmore type of approach. Yeah.
They don't let you walk on courses, all of them anymore. You have to ride a cart. I like to walk. I need that exercise.
Stay on the cart paths.
Yeah.
Well, and now I even with the cart last year, I got in some trouble because I got off the cart path and it's all GPS or whatever, and it just stops if you get too far away, and then we had to like push it for a while. There,
that's embarrassing.
It was horribly
It
embarrassing.
shuts down if you get too far?
Oh yeah, just it turns off.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
So then you had to push it to get back under surveillance cameras?
There were some dads that were really nice and helped me out.
Oh, yeah. Okay, all right. Now, listen, this guy, Scotty Scheffler, before the last round, said something on a Sunday morning that was really good to hear.
I was a bit overwhelmed because I told him, I was like, I wish that I didn't want to win as badly as I did, or as badly as I do. I think it would make the mornings easier, but I love winning. I hate losing. I really do. And when you're here in the biggest moments, when I'm sitting there with the lead on Sunday, I really, really want to win badly. And my buddies told me this morning, my victory was secure on the cross. And that's a pretty special feeling, to know that I'm secure for forever. And it doesn't matter, whether or not I win this tournament or if I lose this tournament. My identity is secure for forever.
James.
Wow. Powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, that's powerful. And you're seeing more and more hints of people in the limelight, people with a voice, people with influence. You're seeing young people less and less afraid to come out about their faith. You see these events where there's a little thing that happens in a college campus church in, was it Kentucky? And the next thing you know, it's like the Jesus Revolution. I mean, I think that, we've talked a lot about how, and Shapiro talks about it, Breitbart talked about it. Culture is upstream from politics. And we can talk about our abortion laws and do what we can to try to stem the tide of abortion. But at the end of the day, it's a cultural problem. It's a cultural question. The crime in our streets, the carjackings. I heard Jill Schluty on with Fred Perry talking about carjackings. I've got some sound on that. Ultimately, it's those kind of voices, I think, that are going to trickle down to behavioral change. It's not going to happen overnight, but man, that was good to hear. Really good to hear. And it also sort of reminds us to stay grounded when something may be going south in your life or your relationship or your financial dealings or your business. Is like, well, wait a minute, you got this. You got this. Don't worry too much about what's going on here on the terra firma. There's more. There's more. So
from the guy with 2 green jackets.
Yeah. And what a beautiful day. I know lots of people were out yesterday and on Saturday getting out, and I saw a lot of gardening going on. I know the farmers are out working the fields, and I love spring. The tulips are popping. It's a great time of year.
See, I feel like we skipped spring and went into summer.
Yeah,
Same.
It felt like that. Yeah.
I have a post up
Welcome
on the Wake
to
Up
Missouri.
Yeah. I have a post up on the Wake Up Mid-Missouri Facebook page asking if you turned your air conditioning on over the weekend. I know we did. We had to install the old window units in our ancient rental house, but
There you go.
yeah.
And I'm so proud of myself this year at the farm. I don't know whether there's not a trap in the basement drain, in the laundry room, or if the trap is somehow. But if I have to put a plug in the trap down there during the winter because it dries out and then we get septic smell coming up. Okay, so I put a plug in there, but then I have to remember when I turn on the air conditioning, because there's a drain tube that goes into that, or else, because it runs across the floor, the little drain tube. And if I don't undo the plug, I have a flood in the basement. That happened last year.
Ew.
Well, no, it's condensate from the air conditioner. I remembered to do it before I turned on the air conditioner.
Congratulations.
Yesterday. I mean, come on.
I'm proud of you.
It's the little things.
No,
in
I'm
life. Well, you know
proud
what
of you,
bothered me
really.
about the flood last year? I had just bought a attorney David Steelman, attorney for House Speaker Dean Plocher, as the drama around the Ethics Committee investigation goes on and on and on. Our guest this hour and every Monday at this time is Scott Faughn, the chairman, the founder of the Ollie Marmol fan club, and also, of course, host of This Week in Missouri Politics and publisher of the Missouri Times. He knows a little bit about these things going on in Jefferson City. Scott, how you doing? Welcome in.
Randy, we've been in last place for so long. I mean, it's so long. The losing. I mean, you know, say what you will about Biden. He's no Ollie Marmol. Just so much losing, just losing and losing and losing. And I tell you what, I've been as skeptical about Bitcoin because, you know, I don't really understand that type of stuff. But if I understand it right, it's data storage. I think I'm going to buy some. Just the amount of data storage it takes for the media to make excuses about Ollie Marmol and just to store that amazing amount of data of just the excuse making about the losing and the losing and the losing.
Yeah.
It's like it's the House Ethics Committee of baseball teams.
Could call it the apologist file. That's what it is. All right, Scott, when David Steelman talked with us on Friday, a fair amount of time was spent about the process, and they're dragging their heels and what's going on. Okay, and the process here and the process there. And then we asked him a bunch of content questions. Well, what about the allegation about the whistleblowers? What about the inappropriate
That's
bidding
laughably
process?
stupid.
Okay, and he answered them. To his credit, he answered them. It was really a bombshell interview, I thought.
It ain't boring. I knew when Hannah tweeted that it was not going to be boring. Look, I thought it was a testament to you guys that David Steelman chose your program to come. I haven't really heard a lot of official commentary from Dean's side. You hear the staff side and the chairwoman's side and the independent every other day.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. He picked Republicans to come talk to, seeing as he's a Republican. But I'll be honest with you, there was a new thing that came out Thursday. It's just one of those things where you just double over laughter. So this all started because Dean Plocher fired a staffer. He had a staffer, just wasn't working out. So Dean let him go. Since the time he was about to let him go, you've seen nothing but leaks and leaks and leaks. You've seen Chairwoman Kelly probably end her career. You've seen the most ludicrous, just ham-handed process I've ever seen. Frankly, when Dean Plocher's exonerated from this or vindicated, it won't even matter anymore. A vindication from this committee is such a clown show that literally you can find no one except your most goofball member that'll off the record defend any of this. It's just reached such a stupid point. And it reached its zenith of houseless. Thursday, there was a former staffer for Chairwoman Kelly who sent an email to the entire House and said, I have tried to reach the Ethics Committee because I was fired incorrectly. And the reason this has went on for so long is because Chairwoman Kelly has a beef with Dean Plocher because he wouldn't give her a better committee that she demanded after she dropped out of the floor leader race. I'll forward you the email. It has become Fannie Willis-like, and that's the truth. When these things have no more integrity, when they have no more moral legitimacy, then the leaks start happening. Now they leak. The Post runs the story of the leaks before the committee even comes in each day.
Yeah.
So you really reach such a lack of credibility that now, I'm not sure that Chairwoman Kelly isn't in more peril than Dean Plocher. I mean, there's two questions here. Well, I don't know about the exact allegations. I can't speak to those because I just don't know about them. But I can tell you this: if this started from a staffer getting fired, which is the absolute truth, there is nobody that would tell you that's not the truth. Whether Dean's the worst person in the world, this started because he fired a staffer. If Hannah firing a staffer and that information was kept from this committee, there could be a conflict of interest. I think she's got a bigger problem than Dean. And number two, if Dean's legal team was not given this email and this information, that there could be a clear conflict of interest on behalf of the chairwoman. I mean, we're talking Fannie Willis type stuff here.
That's
for a lot of people out there, Scott. You know, we remember the Rod Jetton affair and all that stuff. Can you walk maybe the listener through how these hearings actually work? Because they are done behind closed doors. Kind of leaves a lot of us in the dark.
That was a federal grand jury investigation where he was not charged. You're talking about the legislative part. There was a criminal issue long after he was out of office. But as far as that goes, that was a federal grand jury. It actually had some rules. I mean, even the federal government has more rules than this. This is just, I don't like Dean Plucker, and regardless of what everybody in town thinks, I'm going to make these poor committee members sit in this dadgum room until they find something on him. That's what this is the chairwoman with an axe to grind, who the ethics committee has tried multiple times to end this. She won't entertain the motions, literally. She won't recognize people for the motion to dismiss. Thursday, they sat in a room. She finally developed that there was no way she was going to get 6 people to admonish him or censure him or any of that. So then you had her wanting a report, other people wanting a letter. I think she had inferences in there that Plucker was responsible for the Lindbergh kidnapping, the Kennedy assassination. There was some also in there. I think he drank he drank her milk out of the staff refrigerator at the house. I mean, it got so stupid that one of the guys said, "I got Royals tickets. I'm out of here." That's the level of idiocy this thing is. There's no comparison to anything else I've ever seen, to be honest with you. I don't even know how you compare. At least there's some sort of literal thing the guy was accused of. This is a guy that paid his poor reimbursements back and has drank from a bitter cup from it. But now it's just personal and just kind of clownish. The whole thing is a very house-type situation.
Scott, we appreciate you joining us live. I do think it's important, if this were a Republican speaker and a Democratic ethics chair, or vice versa, if it was the different parties involving the two people, it would really get a lot of attention. But the bottom line is the ethics chair and the speaker are both Republicans, so this is interesting. Now, David Steelman was on Wake Up.
When's the last time you covered a Democrat-Republican fight in Jefferson City?
It's been a long
Every fight
time.
is Republican fight.
Exactly.
There's so many Republicans. If you want a good reason to vote Democrat, you'll get better Republican policies is the fact. I don't think a supermajority can put together good policies. I think it ends up in silly personal stuff like you see in the state Senate and like you see here.
Yeah, and you bring up a very good point. And the Republicans were much more united when Jay Nixon was governor, without question. David Steelman, Scott, was on the show on Friday. I know you listened to the interview, the attorney for Speaker Plucker.
Everybody did.
And I appreciate everybody listening. But basically, Randy asked him about the issue of the software contract. And he basically explained it like this. He said, there was no wrongdoing. He said that any contract would have to go to the Office of Administration for bids in an RFP, because that's really been kind of the crust of at least the beginning of the allegations, this contract. Just your thoughts in general on that interview and what he said about that contract.
Brian, I mean, there are facts in this world. And I think that's the biggest problem with our country and the world right now is people have their own set of facts. They say the sky's purple, blue, there are facts. The Cardinals have won 11 world titles. That is a fact. The Cubs have won 3. That is a fact. The speaker cannot pressure anybody to go do a no-bid contract in the state of Missouri. That is a fact. The speaker sent this to an accounts committee. That is a fact. They had a hearing. Yes, Dean was for better contact management software. That is not wrong. It is a simple fact that the Speaker of the House, whether you thought his idea was right or wrong, is totally up for debate. He has no power to send a no-bid contract to hire anybody. As you know, as anybody that's followed, you get, the Star and the Post and the Star and all these folks, they have new reporters every 3 weeks now. By the second day, a new reporter knows you cannot go send a no-bid contract out in the state of Missouri. It's a very good process. OA, you can agree with their outcomes or not. They have a process. No, you couldn't do that. Some things in life are facts. That is one of them. Now, if you're a group who's paid by East Coast elite liberals to get the scalps of Republicans, you would ignore that. It's not that you lie. It's just that you don't include that in the story. And the fact is, there is no way he could have done that. There is you could take Dr. Evil. Dr. Evil could be Speaker of the House. And the one thing Dr. Evil couldn't do while he was buying his quote-unquote lasers, he'd have to send the quote-unquote lasers to the OA process. That's just a fact.
I want to zoom out just a little bit here. And I watched your show that aired yesterday. And at the very end, you always have folks name winners of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And Democrat Ashley Awney said that the Democrats were the winner of the week here in the state, because we are, 6 weeks from the end of the session, and not one truly agreed and finally passed bill has made it to the governor's desk.
I think they passed one to re-ban funding the Planned Parenthood.
Okay.
I think they triple stamp banned that.
But is she? Is she
heard,
right? Isn't that kind of unprecedented this late in the session? And if they can continue to just filibuster and we don't get much legislation passed, do you think that is a win for the Missouri Democrats?
If you're the Democrats, you go buy a big popcorn machine here. The Senate Republicans fight the minority of the Republicans. I think their goal is to get nothing done. I think IP reform has been an inside track from the people supporting it not to make this happen this year. I think that's all been a big clown show. Or not a clown show, it's kabuki theater. It's a clown show would be this ethics committee. To me, they knew what they were doing. Yes, I think they have the thing where they triple, quadruple, double secret probation banned Planned Parenthood funding. But other than that, you got the House passed a budget that I doubt Lincoln even reads. I mean, it is not a particularly serious document this year. Probably this will be the 6th year in a row that the House gets rolled in the budget process. If I'm a House Republican, I'm asking questions as to what are we doing here? And I'll tell you the next thing I would do. If I was a House Democrat, I'd file an ethics complaint against Anna Kelly. Because then they'd have to remove her as ethics chair. And there's a very credible email from us. If former staffers require 7-month investigations if you fire them, well, okay. If that's the rules, which there are no rules, as David correctly pointed out, but if that's the rules, okay. I would wonder why this information wasn't provided. I'd sit back and watch them fight another 3-4 weeks, which they may do anyway. So, yes, if you want the truth, there is. I watch people accuse the Democrats on the Ethics Committee of issues. It is not their problem. David Tyson Smith is a serious person. He's there for serious stuff. He sits in this committee for 100 hours to do nothing but argue the words on some letter because some personal axe to grind. It is all personal. It is the supermajority is out of ideas. They're out of ideas. It's all personal now.
Let's flip quickly from the official side over to the campaign side. Not only is it tax day, but it is ethics reports day. Folks will be filing their quarterly reports today if they haven't done so already. Are we expecting any surprises, or what are you expecting the big story out of those filings by the campaigns?
Obviously, Jay Ashcroft is the story. I think Bill Igo will have a competitive quarter, a better quarter than the state senator should have running for governor. But I wouldn't look for a huge number there. Mike Keogh is going to crush it again. But the truth is we're all starting to expect Mike Keogh to crush it with Missourians reaching their wallets to make him governor. Jay Ashcroft for the front runner is going to have to step that up. I think everybody's going to look at Jay. I'm going to refresh my MEC page to look at Jay Ashcroft's filings. He's been the front runner in polling and name ID, in flack he's caught on the campaign trail. The one thing he hasn't been the front runner in is fundraising, and that's probably the most important part of being the front runner. I really think we're going to look at these numbers here today. He needs to step that up if he's going to maintain his status as front runner. Front runners raise money. People want to give money to the guy they think is going to be governor, and I think it's going to start to be indicative of people that really follow this with their wallet and where they are. If he doesn't pick up the pace on fundraising, there's no excuse for the front runner for Missouri governor, whose dad was the United States Attorney General, to have some of the anemic fundraisers
the octopus. That's right. I did say her name and the word Terrence.
Wait a minute. Okay.
There was a 9-year-old from Utah.
Okay.
Who it was his lifelong dream of, all of his 9 years to own a pet octopus. And that's what he wanted for every single birthday, That's what he wanted for every single birthday, every single Christmas. He just wanted a pet octopus. The family had done very extensive research into what it would take to own a pet octopus.
That's a big deal. That's
And
expensive.
They did everything right.
Saltwater aquarium, the whole thing.
They did everything right.
A reef?
Months, if not years, of research into what it would take to keep a pet octopus healthy. It's a very high maintenance pet to have. And it's the family's first pet that they've ever had. But when they brought Terrence home, they thought Terrence was a male octopus.
And you can see where this one's headed.
Yeah, that octopus, which tentacle identified as which pronoun?
So Terrence, the female octopus,
oh my goodness,
ended up laying eggs, which octopi can do in the wild, even if they're not fertilized, right?
Oh, so this wasn't a bred heifer octopus.
Well, they thought, she just laid eggs.
Yeah.
Octopi do that at the end of their life. It kind of signifies that they're about to die.
Oh.
They dedicate the rest of their life to taking care of their eggs, whether they're fertilized or not.
I didn't know that.
They won't come out and eat because they're taking care of their eggs.
Yeah.
But
in a hotel that we were staying in just a couple of miles from the border with Lebanon. 52 minutes after we left, Hezbollah fired 30 rockets at that hotel. Now, the Iron Dome stopped those, as did they were able to stop a lot of the rockets that came into Israel over the weekend. But it is a sad situation that the President of the United States, by releasing $16 billion to Iran over the last year or so, has in part funded the terrorism by Hezbollah, Syria, and other proxies from Iran.
It's unbelievable. And over the weekend, John Kirby, we won't take your time to play it, but John Kirby told George Snuffleupagus that it was Donald Trump's fault. The soft on Iran policy has been Donald Trump's fault. He started it after all. We live in an alternate universe, don't we, Mark?
It's bizarro world, and this administration has proven one thing that they're very good at. It is lying, obfuscating, and gaslighting the American people. They'll tell you that up is down, that black is white, that night is day, but we know the truth, and the truth is coming on January 20th when Donald Trump is sworn in again as president.
Crazy.
Congressman, we appreciate you joining us. You know, you serve on the House Armed Services Committee, obviously, and represent a big chunk of our listening area. A lot of Columbia you represent. You also represent the folks in Hallsville and Centralia, a big portion of our area. But again, Warrensburg, obviously, you've got Whiteman, and you've got Fort Leonard Wood as well. What do you see in terms of the U.S. military? Would anything happen, anything more than what's already being done right now with the U.S. military? And what are you hearing from anybody at either Whiteman or Fort Leonard Wood? In regards to the Iran-Israel situation? Exactly.
Well, we've not gotten any briefings on that. I do know that the U.S. was involved to some degree in helping shoot down some of these incoming missiles from Iran. We're also learning, I thought it was very favorable news, that the Jordanian military was also involved in this. And if you look at the map, and we were just there, you know, Jordan is the buffer between Iran and Israel. And to have Jordan on our side in this fight against these Islamic terrorist extremists, one thing is clear, that the UAE, the Saudis, these more rational Islamic states, they do not see Iran as a friend. They do not want Iran to expand its powers. They do not want Iran to eliminate Israel. Saudi Arabia is lined up, once I think this war is over with Hamas. They won't come right out and say it, but Saudi wants to do business with Israel. They want to have a normal relationship with Israel. And I think that's one reason you saw the Hamas terrorists move when they did in Gaza. And move outside of Gaza to attack Israel to try to disrupt that relationship. I think once this war is over, and I hope sooner rather than later, you're going to see some very good agreements between Israel and Saudi to try to normalize and stabilize that region.
Congressman Mark Alford joins us here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on a beautiful Monday morning.
Congressman, talk to us about the latest challenge to Speaker Mike Johnson.
Oh, well, I tell you what, I would not want to be the speaker right now. This is a tough job. Marjorie Taylor Greene 2 weeks ago or so kind of halfway called for his ouster by filing on paperwork a motion to vacate, but never got up on the floor and finished what she needed to do to call to vacate the chair. He's in a tough position because he is trying to assuage different factions of our conference, basically, and trying to move legislation forward that's going to be substantive and make a meaningful difference for our country. And that's difficult right now with a 1 or 2 seat majority. We saw last week when Debbie Lesko, who was out with the flu, was not there to able to vote for the warrants for the FISA reform. And so because of that, because the warrants did not pass in that amendment, because Debbie Lesko was not there, we had to go to the floor and vote against the FISA reforms. Now, these are 56 reforms that are meaningful to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act and to the courts, and some real teeth in that reform bill that would have gone after FBI and others who take advantage of their investigative powers and try to prevent what they did to Donald Trump and others. But without the warrants, I saw that as meaningless. And so we may get another bite at the apple today. Anna Paulina Luna filed a motion to recommit, which means that it could go back to the committee. We'll be voting on that. Debbie Lesko's back this week, and it could be an entirely different vote.
Is there a discussion happening over there at the House? Because my understanding was that the Senate, the impeachment articles were supposed to be delivered to the Senate last week. They haven't yet. And I know what happens in the Senate is still kind of up in the air. So what are the discussions happening in the background?
Yeah, this has to do with Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, and we are now told that those are going to be delivered over there Tuesday, and this is kind of a ceremonial walk. You've seen it before on television with the presidential impeachment process. The House acts as a grand jury. The House indicted, basically, impeached Secretary Mayorkas, and those articles of impeachment will be walked over to the Senate. Now, the Senate Democrats have said they plan to quickly dismiss these charges. They will hold a trial, but it will be if they don't dismiss these charges straight off. And we'll see what happens. I am a firm believer that, look, Mayorkas is the biggest liar since Pinocchio. I think he has lied to the American people. I think he's responsible for some 9 million illegal aliens coming into our country with an unknown number of gotaways at this point, possibly 2 million, possibly people who want to do us harm, possibly jihadists who are sitting by waiting for instructions to do whatever they may to destroy our country.
Congressman Alford, budget discussions going on. Your colleague Jason Smith, head of the Ways and Means Committee, of course, deeply involved in big decision making. A lot of talk going on about fiscal restraint, and I think a lot of Republicans have been scratching their head when they remember just a few short Congresses ago when the Republicans had both chambers majority. Earmarks went away. Earmarks are back in vogue now. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, the dirty little secret, they don't call them earmarks. They call them community funding projects or some euphemism like that. And here's I don't do earmarks. Look, that's not the job of the federal government. There are some here who do, who take pride in getting projects back for their district, and I understand that pride, but I believe 99% of these projects, the federal taxpayer does not have any business funding a project in someone else's district. That's not the job of the federal government. I just got back from a conference this weekend in Virginia, and it had all to do with the budget, economic reform. How do we get back on track? I'm a member of the Republican Study Committee, and it is a very conservative group, a subgroup of our Republican conference. We have a budget that balances the budget within 7 years. We've got to get back along that mindset. We can't just keep spending money. When you take in $5 trillion and spend $7.5 trillion a year, and we're $34.5 trillion in debt, it's unsustainable. Now, the average American, their eyes glaze over. They don't even know really what you're talking about when you're talking about the dangers of being that much in debt and the existential threat it is to our nation. But I think it's one of the top things right now that we have to be looking at as something that could really drive our nation under. And so we've got to get spending under control. I think Jason's on the right track, the right mindset. And I think the Republican Study Committee has the answer. We also cannot wait on the President of the United States every year to come out with his budget. He's always late. We need to come out with our own budget, and we need to lead and not follow in this regard.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that principled stance on the so-called earmarks. I mean, I just think that, wow, if that money were to stay at home in the first place and we weren't taxed, and it is tax day, of course, out the bazooka, to only try to get a little bit of it back, like birds in the nest trying to get a little, worm from mama bird. I don't know. It just, the whole thing seems circuitously inefficient and insulting to we, the taxpayers. We're watching the caravan with Donald Trump being taken to his trial. He's going to be there for weeks. taken, well, maybe not off, but certainly partially off the campaign trail. Your thoughts about that whole spectacle?
Well, I think that's a good word for it. It's a spectacle. This is part of the political persecution of Donald Trump. They do not want him back in office because they know that he is going to clean house when he gets there. He's not going to make the same mistakes that he made in his first term, where he allowed people to stay or welcome people in who were not going to follow his mandate and his vision for America to truly make America great again. These trials, look, we've seen them implode in different areas. I think you're going to see the same thing in this trial. This is a prosecutor, Alvin Bragg, who has nothing but contempt, who has partially campaigned, I think, as well, to get his job in order to he's campaigned on taking down Donald J. Trump. And so when you have that type of hatred from the outset, there's no doubt that you're going to have this type of trial come up once again. We'll see what happens. It does take President Trump off the campaign trail, but the eyes of the nation, the world, are going to be focused on this trial, and President Trump's going to be there, and he's going to be talking before and after, I assume. He has pretty much ignored the gag order that this president has tried to shove down his throat. And he's speaking like the rest of us want to. Yeah, it's certainly something. This reminds me of the OJ thing, as the news media is watching this caravan of black, vehicles, the armored vehicles carrying Trump there, the protected vehicles. Hey, thanks for all of this wide-ranging discussion. Really appreciate you when you're on, and continued good luck as you continue to fight the good fight up there in D.C. against some pretty strong headwinds, Congressman. Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you. All right, Congressman Mark Alford. John, what's coming up on your plate on your segment?
Bring down the wrath on Big Pharma.
Uh-oh, watch out.
While there, he got into an argument with an employee, and the manager, Nicole Merck, tried to intervene, asking Owens to please leave the store. That was when Owens, upset because his Viagra script wasn't ready, hit Merck in the face with a book. Authorities tracked him down. He admitted to striking her because, quote, she was being rude to him. They bumped the charge up to felony battery because of a 2020 conviction in Michigan for something similar. The book he used this time, a copy of the Bible.
Oof.
So the question was, if a customer does smite you on the cheek, altogether now, turn the other cheek or maybe just ask him for Cialis. And the rest of that story.
Wow. I'm telling you, people they're acting out these days, John, without second thoughts about it. I mean, it's just amazing. Violence seems to be the first mode of disagreement, right? We're not going to debate. We're not going to have a discussion. We're not going to talk to your supervisor. We're not going to call corporate.
I'm going to clobber you with a copy of the New Testament.
Holy cow. Yeah, man. That's crazy. I don't know. And Walgreens have been, and a lot of the pharmacies, which city was this in?
Small town.
Okay, small town.
Near Clearwater.
Yeah, you're reading about how more and more of these drugstores are having to keep even cosmetics and everyday items behind glass because of the shoplifting that's going on. You've read about it largely in the huge metropolitan areas like San Francisco, LA, and others. But
no, I've experienced it here. I think Walmart keeps like fake eyelashes behind glass, and you have to go get a key.
Really?
For them to let you
electric
have
shavers. You have to go get somebody to unlock them for you.
Yeah.
Contraceptives.
What?
Really?
Yes.
Like
You've not seen that?
Like the Plan B or
No.
Well, but there's only one now that's out. Oh, you mean the condom contraceptives?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant like oral contraceptives.
They should pass those out. We need more contraceptives. You have to go behind lock and key to get them.
At some
crazy.
places.
Wow.
How about that?
Well, you have to put your name and rank and serial number to get Sudafed for crying out loud,
that's a
right?
Good point.
Well, can't you make, is it meth out of Sudafed?
Yep,
or something
that's
like
the
that?
deal.
I know it's crazy.
But you wonder. I mean, I want to support my local area, but if I have to go find an item and then go find and good luck trying to find an employee to unlock the thing for you because the robot can't unlock it for you. So it's a mess. Even my beloved local. Every once in a while, I like to go to the Aldi, and the Aldi has gone to self-checkout.
Yes.
No, that was the joy of going to Aldi. They were the fastest scanners.
They throw your groceries.
Perfect. And they're so quick. I mean, I had a full cart of stuff, and I literally almost just left it and was like, you know what? I'm
this will be what, the second or third hailstorm we've been watching, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we lose count after a while, don't we?
Yeah, and then the temperatures will be down for what looks like better part of a week or more. So even though we got a little hint of summer, a tease of summer, it looks like it's going to return back. It looks like Donald Trump's caravan has arrived at the courthouse there in New York City with the first of rolling trials and the spring and summer of persecution of Donald Trump, right? There'll be a movie someday about that.
That's for sure. We expect the trial to go on several weeks, maybe 6 weeks at least, or around 6 weeks. They said today at least a week probably of jury selection, which begins again. Although usually there's still some like pre-trial and some maneuvering, and his attorneys tried really hard to get this trial pushed back. So I'm not sure we're completely over or past the procedural maneuvers and other things. So we'll see how today goes, but I don't expect to hear too much.
And of course, this trial has been embroiled already with Trump accusing Judge Marsh of having, conflicts of interest because his daughter, right, is involved in Biden campaign.
Going after the prosecutor, saying he's politically biased.
Well, he campaigned partially on the whole notion, just as Fannie Willis did down in Fulton County. So we'll keep an eye on that, see what happens, and I know we'll be covering it tomorrow, as well as the Iranian assault on Israel. They launched 300 rockets and drones and various things. I mean, they just came raining down, but half of them never got across the border, never even got off the pad from what it's been reported. The other half were taken down by Israeli Defense Forces, United States, United Kingdom, some Jordanian forces as well.
Quite a coalition to help with the defense. And of course, there was one injury, even with all of that firepower. So now we await what Israel's response will be. And at the same time, we await some action in Congress of whether we will provide additional aid to Israel, to Ukraine, to some other areas. So a lot going on this week.
John, you're a veteran, right?
Yeah, theoretically.
Well,
okay.
I mean, I don't know how much, you're taught in school, as you go through your education and your training process in ranks. But every analyst I've seen says that Joe Biden continues to be a serial strategic disaster by announcing, I mean, we saw it in Afghanistan, right? You announce we're going to start the withdrawal, complete withdrawal at 2:35 p.m. on August 5th, whatever. Really? I mean, and now he says that he's not, it's leaked out that he told Bibi Netanyahu, hey, none of Iranians' assault in retaliation for they took out that general who'd been apparently a big planner of the October 7th atrocity that occurred from Hamas on southern Israel or on western Israel. He said, just take the win and go home. And we're not going to support you anymore. He made a public statement. If Israel fights back against Iran, we're not going to. Does that seem just like, the strategy 101, you keep your powder dry, you keep your cards close to the vest?
Yeah, that's, it's kind of thing. And, Biden and even Barack Obama was criticized for the same thing, playing out way too much of it and taking credit for all the getting Osama bin Laden and all that. But, it's the military, everybody's supposed to be non-political. And then you get up to the ranks of the generals and the admirals, and it's all about the politics.
Yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating to me that, and then you have John Kirby talking with Snuffle Up, I guess, the other morning, and basically saying, well, it's Trump's fault. I mean, he started this. When the waivers have resulted in money that's supposed to be for humanitarian aid, that's not going to go there with the Ayatollah over there and the theocracy that they have. It's just not going to happen.
Well, they've said their sole goal is to wipe out the nation of Israel, and they've said that for decades since Ayatollah Khomeini took our hostages in Tehran.
And what's more troubling, I guess, than anything is domestically here. I mean, I haven't heard it yet in Columbia. Probably wouldn't hear it in Jefferson City, although there was that Palestinian protest that our friend Jennifer Bukowski got embroiled in here a month or two ago when she was trying to go to a fundraiser. We've talked about that with Locke Thompson last week. But,
yep.
we haven't heard chants of death to America with Americans, or at least people who are here, we presume legally. There was glee and joy and chants of death to America when over the weekend when these attacks started from Iran and their proxies on Israel. One of the guys was announcing that at a rally. Oh, we hear that Iran this was a pro-Palestinian, anti-Semitic, anti-Israel protest. Oh, we hear that the rockets have been launched. And I mean, the protesters, there are many of them anyway, masked. It wasn't because of COVID-19. Are basically gleefully, cheerfully exuberant that, rockets are raining down on Israel. Anti-Semitism is alive and well in these United States of America, and so is anti-American sentiment. And you know what? I think there's going to be a hue and cry among Americans of all types. I'm hoping even those who, wear the donkey on their shirt to say, you know what? If you don't love America, if you don't love America's ideals, then leave it. If you don't love it, leave it. Get out of here. Go back. Go to Iran. Go to Iraq. Go to Syria. Get the heck out of here. It's one thing to criticize the management of an institution, to say Americans' values are not being realized, but to say death to America, that puts it on a different level.
Yeah, we did have, you're right, we've not seen really any of that in Columbia. There was a protest yesterday, Randy, at Washington University in St. Louis, but it was primarily aimed at Boeing, and there were several arrests made at that, a lot of them students, several students.
What were they protesting, doors falling off?
No, it wasn't that. They just basically, Boeing is... They were trying to basically say that Boeing is because
of weaponry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there were several arrests based on news reports.
Maybe they ought to go and visit some of the veterans at the Vietnam Wall. Maybe they ought to go visit some of the World War II and Korean memorials. Maybe they ought to go. Maybe accompany on the heroes' flights. Some of these people. There's not many left now in World War II.
Very few.
But I mean, talk to these guys. And then chant death to America. Protest the manufacture of Americans' defensive weaponry. I mean, really? These snowflakes, they don't have to work hard for their college degrees, which are now just, all you have to do is pay your money. You get a college degree these days. I mean, we all know that, right? And
I am living proof.
No, you are not. No, and I'm not saying that
but you got to pay yours back.
I mean, true.
I mean, it's preposterous, and I'm sick and tired of people who don't honor this country that gives them the right to say that, and at least recognize that if they said that kind of talk in Scotland, there's now been 3,000 or more, well, that was last week, 3,000 complaints to the government because they passed some very broad, vague law about hate speech. I mean, go try to say death to Canada in Justin Trudeau's Canada. See how that's working out for you, you snowflakes. I'm sorry. I have no tolerance for these people.
Do we need to do some deep breathing exercises this morning, Doctor?
No tolerance for these people. By the way, apologies publicly to Barbara Buffaloe. I had her scheduled for 8:10 and she called at 7:35. God bless her. I'm sorry, Mayor. We double booked you. She's going to be on tomorrow at 8:10.
It'll be a good interview. There is a
7:35 tomorrow.
7:35 tomorrow. I mean, just I think a couple of things on the agenda tonight that are worth mentioning very quickly. The big one is Forum Boulevard, and the voters of Columbia approved it's $12 million project. They approved that in 2015. The money is there almost a decade later. I do expect it's going to pass tonight. I mean, the voters have already approved it, but that's on
expansion, right? There's like a bottleneck there for a few miles. Yeah.
It's terrible. Basically, between Chapel Hill and Woodrail, and they're going to widen it at a driving lane in each direction. They're going to have to do a new Hinkson Creek Bridge, but that's on the agenda. And I think the other thing tonight that I've written about, I think is huge, is Mike Griggs being honored and recognized tonight. 37 years. A lot of people in our Boone County, Columbia area have no idea he's in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, and rightfully so.
For what?
for at work at the Columbia Parks
at
Department.
the Columbia Parks Department for the Sports Hall of Fame to support amateur sports. And
I mean,
okay.
the Gans Creek
I didn't know if he had some college history there as well.
He's been involved in the Thomas Atkins Fields as well, so that's on the agenda tonight. Nothing really too controversial tonight on the agenda, but important nonetheless.
Yeah. Okay, so look, I promised you I have to get this off my chest. I've been following this NPR story. A guy named, and I think our journalists here are to be commended for the way you guys handle your journalism, because you're real journalists. This guy, Uri Berliner, who was a senior business editor at NPR, came out on Barry Weiss's The Free Press a couple weeks ago and basically laid bare the, now it's explicit bias that exists at NPR. And he said, look, if we're going, we defended the indefensible, basically, when it came to the Russia collusion deal with Donald Trump. We ignored the Hunter laptop story because we would do whatever we, meaning NPR and their editorial staff, we pretty much looked the other way. And it's not right.
And even after we did, and we all learned that we should have talked about the Hunter Biden laptop, or we should have talked about the lab leak theory. We never came back and said, look, we made a mistake here.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And so Berliner detailed the complete exclusion of any Republicans among the editors there. And instead of the new and highly progressive, the new CEO, Catherine Marr, it's the same last name as Bill Maher. I don't know if there's any relation. I doubt it. Responded over the weekend or late last week to these points by saying this was profoundly disrespectful, hurtful, and demeaning to his colleagues, to Berliner's colleagues, by calling out the company. She doesn't get it. And you say, okay, she's defending the troops there. How can I rationalize this? Some of her past tweets are unbelievable. One of them, and I'm white, so my hair doesn't automatically carry with it the freight of my race, worth, and everyone else's encoded assumptions, biases. Here's another tweet from Catherine Marr. Sure, looting is counterproductive, but it's hard to be mad about protest not prioritizing the private property of a system of oppression founded on treating people's ancestors as private property. Another one, lots of jokes about leaving the U.S., and I get it, but as someone with cis white mobility privilege, I'm thinking I'm staying and investing in ridding ourselves of the specter of tyranny. This is the head of the national public radio service that your tax dollars partially fund. And this is who's leading this.
Well, and she said, how hurtful it is to his other colleagues. I suspect there are other colleagues there who are like, thank goodness he's speaking up, and probably feel like this is not the same place I went to work, 25 years ago. And I think we've all been in those meetings where you feel like you're the only person, and then you speak up and someone behind said, oh my gosh, thank you so much for saying something. I think there are probably a lot of people who are embarrassed at where they've come. And it's really interesting because I've listened to NPR over the years, and my favorite way to do it is I like to listen to a more right-leaning organization and then listen to NPR back to back and kind of compare. And it used to be where I would hear kind of the same stories from two different perspectives, and I think you could get a really good read on on where things were. And now it's fascinating because they're not even covering the same stories. They're completely different topics.
That's right.
And that, I think, is a vast departure from where NPR used to be. It's insane.
Absolutely. And it's now, you're right, it's not how they cover the stories, it's the omission of coverage, which is, that's a major journalistic, isn't that journalism 101?
Yeah.
You don't editorially eliminate a story.
In those quotes you just read, that's...
this is from her Twitter.
There's a difference between opinion and news. Yeah. And... You're a talk show host, so obviously, but is the head person there at the news?
Look, our station says news, analysis, and opinion. We're clearly conservative. We wear that proudly on our shoulders. Okay. You often, even though I try to get you to talk about, make it an appeal, you won't do it, right? You say that's policy matter,
And it is.
Right.
And it is.
But that's right, because you're the journalism hat there.
And they just, again, if you look at the stories that they cover, you can really determine that there's other stuff out there too, folks, besides that, including weather and everything else.
That's right. So at 8:35, we got to talk about the weather tomorrow.
Yeah.
So the S&P closed down 1.46%. NASDAQ even more than that, 1.62%. The Dow fared the best at closing down 1.25%. Driving the losers on Friday, materials, technology, and consumer discretionary. Futures this morning are looking quite positive. All of them they range from about 0.8 to 0.9% up right now. So hopefully a better day, even with this weekend's events, which I suspect will impact the market as well. So one thing, St. Louis has been at some in the headlines. The Wall Street Journal covered their commercial real estate. Now, we've talked a lot with Hannah in the real estate market. We've talked a lot about home prices, and even in Ashland and Mid-Mo, how expensive homes have been. But one thing that is losing value is commercial real estate, and making national headlines was a building. And Randy, you spent a lot of time in St. Louis. You know what the One AT&T Center is?
Yeah.
A 44-story high-rise with 1.46 million square feet. The headline is that office tower lost 98% of its value. It sold last week for $3.6 million, down from a valuation of $205 million in 2006. And they're saying it's just a and folks were kind of waiting. Some of these appointments people had been anticipating. I know it had been noted in the news that the Missouri Ethics Commission did not have a quorum. And so folks had been anticipating some appointments there. He did appoint 2 people to the Ethics Commission, but some other notable Mid-Missourians were appointed. I think he did make Michelle Hadaway's appointment from interim director of economic development to the director. I was really glad to see that. I think she's doing a really great job. And actually Thursday morning, I'll be emceeing a breakfast down in Ashland for Southern Boone folks, and Michelle Hadaway will be one of the speakers. So exciting to have her in Ashland talking about economic development. We've had some big projects there, and I know we're expecting some updates from the school district and from Rankin too. So I hope for my Southern Boone and Ashland friends to see you all there. I also so other folks, Mid-Missouri folks that got appointments, Taylor Burks got appointed to the Truman State. We call it the Board of Governors for those who are in the UM system, Board of Curators, same thing. So that was exciting to see. I also saw Katie Sinkfield is out of Columbia, appointed to the Public Defender's Commission. And I know she is a friend of Jennifer Bukowski's, has done a lot of work in the criminal justice space. So nice to see her appointment there. Other important, there was somebody appointed to the State Board of Education, but also importantly to me, there was an appointment to the Public Service Commission. There's a couple of people who were serving expired terms there. So a lot of appointments by the governor. Now, of course, will have to go on and get confirmed at the Senate.
And they will. And yeah, I agree with everything you said there, Stephanie, in terms of Michelle Hadaway. That is a huge deal. There's one other one, I think. Taylor Burks is a big deal. I actually checked with him. He's been in touch with Senator Rowden. He'll have to be confirmed. I think maybe the most interesting one, though, was Greg Razor.
That's where we were going.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, to me, he is a rising star in the Missouri Democratic Party. Young guy. I mean, this guy really is bright. I mean, very, very articulate. He is, if you're a Republican wanting to debate, you have to be prepared because he's really prepared. Rising star in the Democratic Party, but a young guy. And, you know, let's say you're making $33,000 as a state lawmaker. He's appointed by the governor to the State Tax Commission. Obviously a well-paying job, but he has to give up his senatorial seat likely after the session. But I thought that was huge. The seat is very Democratic. They'll get somebody else. It could be Emily Weber, whoever. But I think Greg Razor, even though he doesn't represent Boone County, he has been a huge champion for the University of Missouri. And he and Sarah Walsh, let's face it, progressive Democrat, Sarah Walsh, a very conservative Republican, when they were in the House together, they basically, from my perspective, they basically saved the Next Gen project when there were some really tight budget times. So he has been, I thought that was huge.
So you think, I mean, cynically speaking, politically looking at this, is the governor taking a strong rising star in the Democrat Party and sort of, shuffling him off to Buffalo there?
I don't think so. I think the governor's about service. I really do. And he respects Greg Razor. Greg Razor served obviously in the House and was on the Budget Committee. I don't think so because he could still run for something at some point. But I mean, from Razor's perspective, he's made it very clear he's going to continue with same principles on the State Tax Commission, but it's an opportunity, and it's a full-time job, primarily based in Jefferson City. So I don't think it was anything more than that. And the governor has appointed he appointed Jamila Nasheed, a Democrat, to the Probation Parole Board as well. So he's definitely appointed Democrats.
Well, and some of the boards are statutorily structured to where he has to pick a Democrat. Now here with Razor, he was going to be termed out in 2028, and we were expecting Emily Weber to run. Apparently, Pat Contreras has already issued a statement saying that he's got a lot of support, and so we are not. So how that affects Emily Weber's decision, we're not sure, but either way, that seat's going to stay Democratic.
It is. I mean, there's no way a Republican could win there. But I thought that was big, and Taylor Burks obviously was a big deal. And the other thing that I thought, I don't know, I caught the tail end, so I didn't hear everything you said, Stephanie, but Lyda Cruzan, I don't know if you mentioned her.
Oh, I did see that, but I didn't mention her yet.
UM Board of Curators. Everybody thinks of her as the St. Louis mayor, but a lot of people, Stephanie and Randy and team, don't realize this. Lyda Cruzan grew up in Moberly.
And is a Truman State graduate.
Yes, she is. She and very, very, very proud, and has an incredible story. I don't know if people are familiar, but her husband was essentially just a horrific murder, killed out in front of his front house. And in her own husband. That was back in the late 80s. So, and then later became the mayor of St. Louis.
So for those who may wonder what the State Tax Commission, to which Greg Razor has been nominated to be a commissioner on, their charge is given the responsibility of ensuring the uniform and equitable assessment of all taxable tangible property in the state.
Yeah, like setting rates on personal property, like your vehicles. That's the guy the assessors defer to as the state tax commission.
There's a lot of people that have some gripes about the way things are assessed.
They are, and it won't be an easy job, but I'm sure he'll do well. And in every great once in a while, about every 5-6 years, it seems like they'll come out with something about agricultural land, and the Farm Bureau will fight them. And that gets complicated in the legislature because they have to do something in January. But I do think it's a huge opportunity for him. And I thought, and they're all big. Everything you mentioned there, Stephanie, all of them big for Taylor Burke's on there. But I do think Razor probably is the biggest appointment of the bunch.
Wonder if Bill Eigel raises some problems with this since it has to do with property tax. I don't know.
I mean,
he might.
Razor will have to be confirmed, and I do expect that. But I mean, if someone has a beef, and I've never heard anybody say a bad word about the man. I really
has
haven't.
integrity. Yeah,
Senator Razor was the guy who was right in the middle of the debate over LGBTQ and the gender transition stuff and all, and he's openly gay and wears that hard on his sleeve.
This has a lot to do with, this is one of these bureaucratic institutions that really do the dirty work of what the statute says, right? Yeah. They write the rules. They can, in a way, legislate with rulemaking. Let's be honest about it. And so it's a pivotal and important position.
It is. I mean, it's not. It's I've known him. He's always a hard worker, and he's really big on the Mizzou football team as well. But I mean, it won't be an easy job, no doubt about it. And I'm sure he'll have to learn some stuff. But I thought, go ahead, Stephanie.
Well, no, the other state news that I think we're expecting today, we talked a little bit about candidate filings, and we'll see some of their how much money they've raised, what they've spent so far. But we'll also be seeing the same numbers for initiative petitions. Those committees that are supporting initiative petitions will also have to report. And we're getting a text saying there's got to be a lot of money behind these gambling initiatives because I've seen these people, everywhere. They're saying multiple times at all the Old Navy, Mosier's, parks, everywhere. And he said, are we really talking about this? These folks are telling me it's for increased teacher pay, and he's saying it's the sports gambling initiative petition. I wonder, though, if it's the Osage casino petition. There's 2 gambling petitions out there as well, but we're closing in, Brian. We're under 3 weeks now. They have less than 3 weeks to go to turn the signatures in.
There are, and again, whether people are for the gambling or not, I know people have strong opinions on it. You just have to be really careful what you're signing because... And it may not even be that the person with the pen and paper is deliberately misleading, but they may not be informed really of what it is. I mean, on any of these things.
Yeah, this texter says that maybe they're misrepresenting it, but there's people collecting signatures for increased teacher pay, and yet they're for other issues. And I told you how the whole IP on abortion has been misrepresented. I personally on 2 occasions. So.
And they're all out collecting with earnest, which probably means they're not there yet. So some of these, obviously we've been encouraging a lot of folks to decline to sign that abortion initiative.
Right.
And, I'm hoping that people stay strong and read what's in there and do decline to sign it. It sounds like a lot of people are. I haven't seen those signature gatherers out hardly at all. And not like I bumped into the gambling people. I wonder, I think the folks that
had them come by your house, so.
That was the minimum wage people, and I did decline to sign that one as well. I know the Osage gambling folks, they had like T-shirts on. They've been in downtown a lot, and they said like kids first or education or whatever. And I mean, there's some, some of the gaming money does go for education. So I don't know which one this texter is talking about, but certainly that might be the claim.
And again, exactly, I'm not sure either, but it could be that the person's even misinformed that is, circulating it too.
We do need to talk about the weather coming in tomorrow.
Yes.
What do we know as of now?
Well, the Weather Service, I've got an updated story, 939theeagle.com, KWS.com. I encourage everybody to look at the map because it's been tweaked and it's been actually raised a little bit. And when I talked to Fred Glass yesterday, he was looking at a time frame, Randy and Stephanie, of about 4 to 9 p.m. tomorrow. And by the way, we could get an isolated storm or 2 today. I don't think today is going to be too much to worry about. So really our threat is tomorrow. Jeff City, Columbia, Ashland, Moberly, Boonville, basically the entire listening area. is going to be impacted by storms. Columbia, Mexico, Boonville, Moberly, Fayette, basically our northern counties, as we call them, the I-70 corridor, are in an orange area and an enhanced area. But just below that is still a risk area as well, and that would be in the number 2 area. We are looking, I did talk to Lydia Jaja this morning. I made a call right before I went on the air at 6 o'clock just to make sure, because it looked like the time had changed. And she says right now the system should start, and I know it's a big window, in Columbia, Jeff City, between noon and 3 tomorrow, continuing the afternoon through about 6, maybe 7 o'clock. They are warning about potentially tornadoes. They are warning about hail up to 2 inches in diameter and damaging winds. So you're going to want to be very, very careful. If you have a garage, I'd encourage you to use it tomorrow. And you want to keep your radio tuned to 93.9 The Eagle and also KWS.com as well. And keep fresh batteries in your radio. Time will likely be tweaked a little bit. It always is. But that is where we're at right now, and I'm concerned. I am. Not for today, but for tomorrow.
I, like many in the listening audience, follow your reports, our news partner, ABC 17. The Mid-Missouri weather page, Tony Lupo's page, follow that too. Now, this is a 12-hour-old post now, but he talks about potentially this evening, by this afternoon, west of 65, things rolling in, and then as early as this evening. But now what you're saying is modification of that,
it would
right?
be he may have been correct at the time, and there still could be
being updated now.
In his forecast doesn't necessarily match with the National Weather Service on that. The National Weather Service, specifically in St. Louis, says anything we get is going to be isolated. Most people wonon't get anything tonight.
And he's talking showers and thunderstorms this evening, not hail.
Right, exactly. And again, he's right in that we could see, the weather. I am not a scientist, so that gets even more complex. But the reality is that the National Weather Service says that most people won't see anything tonight, won't even get any rain. But if you're in an area where there is a storm, very isolated, yeah, it could be severe, but we're not talking any tornadoes tonight. We're not talking about that. Really, the threat is tomorrow night, barring something unforeseen, which always could happen. But tomorrow night's the much
And what's
bigger.
the northern and southern extent of the threat? I mean, are we talking all through like Moberly, Macon, north, through south?
That's why I encourage people to look at KWS.com and 93.9theeagle.com, because I've got a map. But basically, where your farm is and points north, it literally is in Iowa, all the way down to the Missouri-Iowa border, all the way through Columbia is orange. I mean, basically, the whole top of Missouri is in orange for the enhanced risk.
All right.
Everything below I-70 is yellow for the slight risk, which is still a big deal.
I know you told people to put batteries in their radio, but also charge your phone and download the app, because I got distracted last time and was at a couple weeks ago, was at my office building, and it was about 6 in the evening, and all of a sudden the siren It's trial day for Trump. It's tax day. I guess it's Boston Marathon day. It's also, I think Caitlin Clark is expected to go in the WNBA draft tonight. She was actually on SNL on Weekend Update over the weekend and apparently did really well. And I think I said last weekend that SNL was like almost funny, which it hasn't been for a really long time, but they got rave reviews because Ryan Reynolds hosted, I think it was Ryan Reynolds. Yeah. Is that right? No, not Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Gosling. Is that right?
Oh, Ryan Gosling.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Too many Ryans.
I know. But they had the most, like, no one could keep character. There were so many breaks. They were all laughing hysterically. That's how funny it actually was. And so if you've missed some of the clips, I would encourage you to go watch it. But I think like returning to a time where we can laugh at ourselves and, you know, they haven't really entered the political realm yet, but certainly it would be ripe with a lot of potential for humor this upcoming election. So I'm glad to kind of see them getting back to being funny because they haven't been funny in a long time.
Yeah. And not being so vitriolic and hateful in their humor.
Yeah, they had this. They had a famous the one that was really funny this last weekend was this Beavis and Butthead sketch, and it was cute. It was good.
Bring back Bassomatic. Where's the Bassomatic with Dan Aykroyd?
Bag full of glass.
There you go. John, any leftovers?
Well, there's a settlement proposed for former employees who worked at Noble Health in Fulton, in Mexico, kind of a sidebar to Brian's story. What we've heard is $2 million would be split evenly between the two locations, mainly for back pay and holiday pay and all that are owed to the former employees. So a court date on that is next month. We'll see if that comes to pass.
And that would be between the former owners, Noble, and the employees? The settlement?
Yeah, Noble is. That's the way we understand it. And that, I don't think that factors into the discussions that Boone Health had the other day.
Well, and I know a lot of people got squeezed because their insurance wasn't paid. Their insurance premiums weren't paid. Wasn't there something about that? And then they were, they incurred a lot of medical debt as well.
Yeah, the employee benefits and all that. And I think this even takes in the liquidated damages and attorney fees and all. So we'll see what happens next month.
Hannah, what do you have?
Well, it's opening day for turkey season.
Oh, yeah.
For the adults, the big kids.
And a beautiful one it is.
Yeah. And I know the lieutenant governor's wife, Claudia Kehoe, has already posted on Twitter that she has already gotten a bird.
She bagged one.
It is a very large turkey.
All right.
She got one on the first day last year, too.
Holy cow. Look at her. I didn't know she was a huntress.
And, of course, to all of our turkey hunters listening, if you don't get a turkey